to me, gold is the only real money, and it's something that everybody should have in their portfolio. If you don't have gold, you don't have any real money.
There's no point buying gold in your brokerage or whatever. Like you say, it could just get
No,
seized.
and anything you hold in your brokerage or in your bank, you don't own it. The bank owns it. The brokerage owns it. It can be seized at any time. You know, we all know of people that it's happened to. It's happened to some people close to us. Governments don't like gold because it threatens their monopoly on money, and governments want to have a monopoly on printing money. And if everyone had gold, that completely undermines that. So for that very reason alone, everyone should have gold. And it's the only thing that's been money for 5,000 years. Literally every fiat currency that's ever existed has gone to zero and been worth less than the paper it's printed on. That is just a fact. And the current currencies, whether it's the US dollar, the British pound, the Canadian currency, even Swiss francs, they're all going to zero.
How much gold have you accumulated over, all of these years from when you first bought the first one?
Well, I don't think that's something that I would like to answer in public.
Yeah, keeping on the protection route, we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that my asset protection measures are good. So in terms of owning things in my own name, I don't own anything in my name.
Yeah, we'll just say it's in the trillions then.
I wish. Before the Federal Reserve came into being in 1913, there was 100 years of stable prices where
that's another point.
Was
the
no
gold
inflation.
standard. Why do we ever get rid of that?
Governments get their power out of being able to borrow and print money, and that's the bottom line. There's no honest money. There's no honest government. Everything has been degraded over the years, and that is a trend that seems to be accelerating. The governments, as far as I can see, are largely criminal enterprises with bad actors looking to take rights and property away from people. You want to have an offshore company, offshore foundation, that sets up an account with the bullion vault. It could be in Switzerland, it could be Singapore, it could be the Cayman Islands, it could be Australia, and you have an account for your offshore company and you buy your gold there.
Welcome back to Ace Position. In this asset protection and tax minimization video, we're going to be discussing how most people don't really have control of their own assets and what you can do to protect your assets from other people, including tyrannical governments. Email us or comment below for any further advice. If any of our channel's 5 key verticals, stocks and shares, including commodities, acquisitions, including you yourself potentially taking part in hostile takeovers of public companies with us, profit maximization, asset protection, and tax minimization, sounds like everything you'd ever need in your finance journey, please don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on post notification, and join our Discord chat room linked in the description so you can get in these plays and opportunities when we do.
Right now, I'm a big fan of the commodities. I've always been a fan of gold for the last 20 years or more. I was buying gold back in the 1990s. So to me, gold is the only real money, and it's something that everybody should have in their portfolio. If you don't have gold, you don't have any real money. So if you're looking at anything priced in gold, whether it's the Dow Jones index or houses or whatever, the peak for everything in terms of real money, in terms of being priced in gold, was back in the late 90s. 1999, I think, was the peak for the stock market. Houses have, everyone assumes they've got in price, but in terms of real money, they've gone down, which is rather incredible. So if you've had gold for the last 20 years, then you've been ahead. And that's something that I have as a significant part of my portfolio.
I even heard people say that, even atheists say that it's God's money. Like, why not use that?
Yeah, it's the only real money, and yet you also have the opportunity to keep money, if you've got it in gold, outside the banking system, because you don't want to store gold in a bank because it can be seized there, and there's historic precedent for gold being seized. In the 1930s in the US. Private gold holdings were seized, and it was illegal to hold gold, and you had to turn your gold over because the government wanted to reprice gold. Now, I'm not sure they could get away with that nowadays, but who's to say they wouldn't try? Because governments don't like gold because it threatens their monopoly on money, and governments want to have a monopoly on printing money. And if everyone had gold, that completely undermines that. So for that very reason alone, everyone should have gold, and maybe to a lesser extent silver. So silver, I think, is a great opportunity, particularly when you look at the historic difference between gold and silver. Historically, 20 ounces of gold would buy 20 ounces of silver. Sorry, would buy you an ounce of gold. Nowadays, it's going to take you 80 ounces of silver to buy an ounce of gold. So if that even goes back to anywhere near its historic level, silver would have to increase from its present, I think it's $29 today, would have to get close to $100 to get back to anywhere near its historic precedent. So silver could be worth a punt, but it's gone up a lot in the last couple of years, but it may still have further to go.
Commodities is a really good sort of safe haven and assets, and trying to protect our assets and buy like safe haven stuff. There's no point buying gold in your brokerage or whatever. Like you say, it could just get seized.
And anything you hold in your brokerage or in your bank, you don't own it. The bank owns it. The brokerage owns it. It can be seized at any time. You know, we all know of people that it's happened to. It's happened to some people close to us, where money's been seized because it's held in banks or brokerages, and not somewhere safely outside the system. So I'm a big advocate of holding things outside the system. I mean, of course, that's why crypto is loved by many now, particularly Bitcoin. You know, that's another great way to hold money outside the system, particularly for transferring money over borders. Because if you want to, take your gold coins or gold bars and transport them, it's not so easy nowadays. If you're taking your gold coins through an airport, you're at risk of it being confiscated, because nobody has any privacy going through an airport. So you don't want to be taking 20, 30, 40 ounces of gold through an airport, because the chances are you're going to have a fight to get it back again when they take it away from you. So Bitcoin is likely one of the best ways to transfer money overseas if you want to avoid the banking system, because it's liquid. You can transfer anywhere in seconds, and you can convert it to gold easily at the other end if you don't want to keep it in crypto. It's seizure proof, because nobody can. Well, I won't say it's impossible, but it's very difficult to seize Bitcoin. Obviously, it has happened in certain cases. But the same thing applies to what we were saying earlier about gold. Don't keep your crypto in a crypto exchange unless you're going to sell it. You want to keep it in a private wallet, because if you keep your Bitcoin in a crypto exchange, again, it can be easily seized. Don't be lulled into a sense of false security, and also
remember the password as well. Don't be, you're your worst enemy. So
exactly. But you've got to always be very cautious about leaving any asset with third parties. So I personally, I'm a big fan of Bitcoin. I've got a preference for gold, because gold has got more longevity.
Saying if a competitor comes along, government centralized cryptocurrency, that will kill Bitcoin. A competitor immediately in, people will be, they'll just feel like, I'm going to have to, even if I don't want to, go with the government.
And I know that people who love Bitcoin will argue this point, but I just think something's been money for 5,000 years. I'd rather trust that more than I trust a relatively new currency like Bitcoin. But I do love Bitcoin. I've been buying Bitcoin for years too, and I certainly have that as part of my portfolio, and that will definitely continue. And I think that there's a great future for crypto, particularly. I say crypto, I mean Bitcoin when I say crypto, because there's so many scammy.
Exactly. Better just go with the main ones.
You definitely don't want to be buying. But of course, what we don't know is if, perhaps one of the arguments against Bitcoin is that we don't know if something better is going to come along, if there's going to be a better Bitcoin in the future. So it's a space that needs to be watched closely. But at the moment, Bitcoin is getting a lot of traction. And when you see countries like El Salvador making it a national currency, that's got to be very encouraging for Bitcoin.
Was one of your biggest wins on a kind of a big board thing, Bitcoin, like in terms of return on investment?
Yeah, I think when you see something, I mean, I didn't buy early enough. I mean, very few people did. I mean, I was aware of Bitcoin when it was $3-4, but unfortunately, it was pretty difficult to buy then. There weren't many.
That's true.
You really had to be a miner to get into it then, or you had to know exactly how to buy it. So it was difficult to buy. So I didn't start buying until it was over $200, which I think was around 2013, 2014. And obviously, I think anyone that got into it at any level since then can't believe the gains that have come from it. Nobody, if you said to me back then, Bitcoin's going to be at $60,000, $70,000, I wouldn't have believed it. I don't think many people would. There are very few hodlers that have had Bitcoin $3 and kept it all the way through. And there's obviously the famous story of someone who bought a pizza in Bitcoin at the very start, and you do wonder if the guy who sold the pizza kept the Bitcoin. But
yeah.
you know,
And
I think
somehow they almost never have, which is if they have accidentally, they've lost it because it's on like on a card.
It's the same as something like Berkshire Hathaway. How many people have had Berkshire Hathaway since the 1960s and held it all the way through? Very, very few, because when something doubles and then doubles again, human nature says, you know, I'm going to sell that, I'm going to take the gain because it might fall again. But and sometimes that's the right thing to do, of course. But in many cases, you know, something just keeps going up and up and up and compounding.
I was very close to buying Bitcoin at the very, very, very early days, but as we said, it was difficult to buy and there was some doubts. So I was doing some research, and I don't know if you remember a guy, if you heard of BitConnect, and this guy went to a conference, and I got confused that BitConnect and Bitcoin were the same thing, because I thought BitConnect was a conference for Bitcoin, whereas it was actually a totally different thing, and that was a scam. But he was so enthusiastic, and he was screaming, and I'll probably play it over I'll play a clip like now, and you'll see that he was very passionate, very believable. You could just see that this was not legit. And I thought, okay, well, this is connected to Bitcoin. I'm now staying away. So I kind of, I might even say I blame him a little bit for me not purchasing any Bitcoin back then. I mean, I see Ethereum has more. I mean, I'm not an expert in crypto, and I don't think it's worth the time to become a huge expert. But obviously, Ethereum has more use cases than Bitcoin. You know, even one of the companies I've covered, 3D, have a portfolio company that arguably are creating a new blockchain. So if a new blockchain comes around, or like Ethereum's more efficient than Bitcoin, its use cases are more wide. I mean, with all the meme coins, they're all being done on Solana because it was just probably easier to set up a coin and do things like that. So it kind of depends on the access. Competitors are the thing that will potentially dilute any gains in the space.
It depends what you're trying to achieve. There are some decent privacy coins as well, which are not so easy to track as Bitcoin, because Bitcoin, although it's there's no central authority and it's difficult to freeze, you can obviously see every transaction on the blockchain, whereas there are privacy coins like Monero, for example, where you can't see the transactions. So some people like that for that very reason, that they're much more difficult to track.
Back to the gold. I mean, when we're talking about protecting yourself, and if you're going to buy gold, you're looking to protect yourself, do that properly. So how do you do that? Do you have physical gold stored, or?
Well, you can have physical gold which is stored somewhere near. I'd recommend that it's not stored in your home.
Yeah.
That can be easily taken away from you, but it can be stored somewhere near your home, and you certainly should have gold coins, particularly these quarter ounce coins, because in a worst case scenario, if the banks are closed, you can use these quarter ounce coins potentially to trade with, whereas an ounce, which is $2,500, may be more difficult to trade for smaller items. So everyone should have some quarter ounce gold coins as well as their ounce coins, and some silver coins nearby for just in case of emergency. Who knows what happens in the world when you may need to use those coins to trade with. But if you buy larger quantities of gold, there are gold storage facilities. You want to have an offshore company, offshore foundation that sets up an account with the bullion vault. It could be in Switzerland, it could be Singapore, it could be the Cayman Islands, it could be Australia, and you have an account for your offshore company and you buy your gold there. You make sure you must make sure your gold's in allocated storage and not mixed with other clients' gold. So that's important. It's got to be held to your order, which means you have to pay to have it stored. That's a small price worth paying to have your gold stored. And you can also you can also pick that gold up from the storage, or if you get gold, for example, in Australia, but you want to collect it in Switzerland, you can arrange to do a swap and collect your gold at a vault that's close by to where you are if you need to. But in most cases, you won't want to be carrying around 400 ounce bars of gold. They're not easy to to carry around. So
although in the UK now we're not accepting cash, I guess that's because it's private premises or whatever. I feel like there should be a law that says that if you've got money, you've got something to pay for it, they have to accept it.
Yeah, the problem with that is in the UK you buy gold sovereigns, and they've got a monetary value on them. They're issued by the Royal Mint. They've got monetary value on them. So the monetary value on the gold sovereigns is £50, but they're worth $2,500. So you're not gonna try and use that to buy anything, obviously, because any smart retailer would bite your arm off to take it for 50 quid. So it's not going to happen. But yes, of course. I mean, I would be happy to accept gold for anything that I'm selling, but unfortunately nowadays most people don't know what gold is. I saw something on YouTube recently. There was a guy standing very close to a gold coin shop, and he was offering passers-by in the US a chance to either have this 1 ounce gold coin or have a chocolate gold coin, and most people took the chocolate one.
Yes, yeah, I know that. I think I know the guy you're talking about. I watched him. I've seen lots of his.
Yeah, I can't remember his name, but
doing it now.
He makes some very good videos of these passers-by in the street in the US. I also saw one where a guy was offering either $20 or a 1 ounce gold coin.
Yeah.
And obviously everybody took the $20 because nobody understands gold, and that is that's a good sign, because if everybody understood gold, then it would be a much higher price. So if we get to a stage where everybody realizes that they must have gold isn't going to be $2,500. Gold is going to be $10,000, $20,000.
That's a huge point you mentioned there. Like the same way that Bitcoin was misunderstood, and I was like even saying now, like it's still misunderstood. There's if we've got the value of like the treasury and stuff in the trillions, like Bitcoin should be in the trillions, and this is the price because of that. You're saying obviously gold is still so misunderstood, proven in these videos. Therefore, the price is still going to keep going up. We know don't follow everyone else does. You follow, you almost do the opposite. The same way, everyone's selling, you should be buying if there's a market crash.
Yeah, so it's a secret to investing, and perhaps a secret to life, being successful in life, that you do the opposite of what you feel like doing, and the opposite to what most people are doing, because most people get it wrong about most things, because most people don't have money, they're unwell, and they don't look great, so you don't want to be following the same things as most people are doing.
Do you still have your first coin that you ever bought, or bar that you ever bought? Have you got that somewhere? Have you?
Yeah, I very possibly do. I mean, I used to like buying different coins from different parts of the world, where you get Chinese panda, you could get get polar bear coins from different countries. When I lived in Monaco, I bought Monaco gold coins there, these types of coins, there's actually a premium one. Nowadays you can sell an ounce of gold for a much higher price that's cool. If it's a gold coin from Monaco or certain other types of coins. So I used to like buying things like that. Nowadays I just want to have an ounce of gold, so I'm happy to buy Krugerrands or American Eagles, or the gold sovereigns from the UK, whatever. So if you want to be more aggressive, you can buy the gold stocks, and there's still some great bargains if you look at the gold indices like the GDX. You look at some of the stocks in there are still stocks that you can buy for the same price you could have 5 years ago, despite the 20%, 25% increase in gold this year. So there are still some great bargains there, and you could say that about some other commodity sectors as well. So I like the commodity sectors in general when I'm allocating my capital. Or look at some of the big players like Newmont Mining. There's a lot of small gold mining companies that pitch investors seem very cheap, and I haven't done the research on them, and some of them may be great. I don't know, so I wouldn't like to recommend any of the smaller ones, and that's something that maybe on the channel we can do some research and contact some of these gold companies in the future and start finding out a little bit more about them, because I wouldn't mind finding some of these small ones that are good, and I'm sure they exist. I'm sure they're out there, and it'd be great to talk to some of these guys. But mining obviously is a very tough business, so you want to get it right. But the biggest, I think, is Newmont Mining, and it's definitely worth looking at their shares. It's definitely worth looking at the indices like the GDX, as I said. In terms of Bitcoin companies, I've never invested in any Bitcoin companies, but again, I'm sure there are some decent ones out there, but I've never done any research on them. I prefer to have the physical asset.
Touching on those contacting companies, I mean, I'd just like to say to viewers, like it's going to be great, because we're going to be, even for example, these people sponsored our videos or whatever, they haven't contacted us, we've contacted them, because we've chosen that they are good companies for us, but also for our viewers as well, which I think's it's not been done, I don't think, on YouTube, where people are able to say that the video is sponsored, but it's only because we have done the DD, we've actually approached them, they've not approached us, because obviously there can be immediately biases in place if it's the other way around. So yeah, that's
And it's also worth talking to the people involved in these companies to get a feel for them, and letting people see them having a chat on YouTube and draw their own conclusions about what they're saying, because obviously every company has got they want their stock price to increase, or they want to issue new shares or whatever, and they want to get new investors in. So we'll tell you what we think, but obviously people watching this channel as well have to come to their own conclusions.
How much gold have you accumulated over all of these years from when you first bought the first one?
I don't think that's something that I would like to answer in public.
Yeah, keeping on the protection route, we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's safe to say that my asset protection measures are good. So in terms of owning things in my own name, I don't own anything in my name.
Yeah, we'll just say it's in the trillions then.
I wish.
So it's protection from government and government tyranny, whichever country you're in. If you're sued, I guess, if you've got it in proper locations, as we've discussed, wars and rumors of wars from like the Bible with Israel and Ukraine and cash flow issues there. In a world-ending scenario, gold's going to be.
It might be the last asset standing, because in a real doomsday scenario, which I don't expect, by the way, but a real doomsday scenario where there's no internet, then there's no cryptocurrency either in that scenario. So
exactly,
gold and silver to a lesser extent could be your currency of last resort, and it's the only thing that's been money for 5,000 years. Literally every fiat currency that's ever existed has gone to zero and be worth less than the paper it's printed on. That is just a fact. And the current currencies, whether it's the US dollar, the British pound, the Canadian currency, even Swiss francs, they're all going to zero. There's no question about it. Historically, that is a fact. Even currencies that have been around for a long time, the pound was a pound of silver, and what's a pound worth now? Not much. The US dollar was a 20th of an ounce of gold. When it first came into circulation, and you could actually take that US dollar to the treasury and exchange it for your 20th of an ounce of gold, which obviously is not possible nowadays.
Yeah, well, that should be. Get all conspiracy theory of a number of these things. Why are good things, not possible anymore?
Before the Federal Reserve came into being in 1913, there was 100 years of stable prices.
That's another point. There was the gold standard. Why do we ever get rid of that?
Governments get their power out of being able to borrow and print money, and that's the bottom line. There's no honest money. There's no honest government. Everything has been degraded over the years, and that is a trend that seems to be accelerating now in recent years. And you mentioned all the bad things that seem to be going on in the world, and gold and silver are your ultimate hedges against that with some cryptocurrency. It's not as much.
You're going to get hacked as well, and if the internet goes, things like that.
It's not as much fun as investing in the latest stock that's going to fly away, and even the small cap stocks, which can go to the moon. Then you can make 10 times your money very quickly. But if you want to have your savings somewhere steady, then gold is as good a place as any to be, and it's something that you actually own. As I said before, anything that's in your bank account, brokerage account, you don't own it. It's not, unless it's physically in your possession, you don't own it. Anyone can go and seize the money in your bank account, your brokerage account. They can seize it any time. It can be totally unexpected.
As for me, I like the stock.
Order filled.